What happens when a man with 17 years of experience is thrown out of his job with no explanation? He doesn't say a word until he turns out to be the one on whom their survival now depends. What happened next changed everything. My name is Martin Wells. I'm 54, and if you think life after 50 is about wisdom and peace, you clearly haven't stood under an office sign in -5 with a box in your hands full of your belongings and 17 years of life. Nor stood while your director, with the face of a plastic mannequin, explained to you that it's just business. Friday, 6:03 p.m. My desk at work is empty. Just a thermos of coffee, as old as my knees, and a framed photo of my son. I picked it up first thing in the morning. Not out of sentimentality, out of self-respect. It was the only thing here over the years that really belonged to me. I started the day as usual. I turned on the coffee machine in the office kitchen, left a cup for everyone in the department. Tradition. No one asked for it. I just believe the day starts with a decent coffee and a human attitude. Everything else comes later. And then, as it turned out, there was Harding, in a suit that cost more than my car, and a face that said, "I'm just following orders." "Martin, have you got a minute?" "Yeah, I'll be right back. I've got a lifetime of minutes like that." He invited me into the conference room as if he was going to give me a medal. I sat down. He put a file in front of me, and he began. "I want you to know this isn't personal. The board has decided we need to move forward. Optimization. Fresh blood. Fresh fucking blood. I took the company through 3 mergers, one near bankruptcy and a COVID 2020. Fresh blood was sitting at home filming TikToks, and I kept reports, clients, in a department where the younger ones didn't cry after the first feedback. But that didn't matter. Right now, prioritize flexibility. Read, "You're too old, Martin." I didn't say anything. Just stood up, took the thermos. I didn't take the papers. Not because I'm proud, because if I'd stayed another 5 minutes, I'd have broken that glass table. It was snowing in the parking lot. My 2007 Toyota Corolla still started the first time. I got in, turned on the heat, didn't drive, just sat there. My head was empty, and in my chest a deafening, sticky cold. In 17 years, I've never taken a sick week, never failed a deadline, and now I don't need you anymore. I drove home. At a stoplight, my son called. "Dad, how was your day?" I lied. I told him I got held up on a report. I mean, he's a freshman. He's under enough stress as it is. And then I just drove in silence, listening to the radio blaring about the stock market crash. It's quiet at home. Just the cat I rescued 5 years ago. She met me at the door. She doesn't care about optimization. She cares about a bowl and warmth. I sat down in the kitchen, opened my laptop. Inertia. Mail. 5 notifications. Your pass has been deactivated. Server access denied. Your corporate number has been transferred. Fast, cold, clean. It's like an appendectomy. Only the appendix is you. I went to the shower, hot water. For the first time all day, it's really warm, but it's still pounding, because there's only one question in my head. Why? That's when there was a knock at the door. My neighbor, Mr. Dorrigan, brought me a letter from the HOA, complaining that I didn't clear the snow off the stairs. I almost laughed out loud. Fired, trampled, and now also unclean owner. I apologized. I smiled. I closed the door. And I realized that's it. Today you are no longer Martin Wells, head of analytics. Today you're just the guy who got fired Friday night. And then there was silence. The kind of silence you don't get in an office. And in that silence, I realized, if you're sitting on the floor in socks with a thermos in your hands, it's not a bottom. It's a goddamn starting position. So tomorrow's the first step. Which way? I don't know, but it ain't backwards. I woke up early, like always. Not even because of the alarm clock. It's just that my body was used to getting up at 6:40 like a clockwork mechanism. Only now there was no point. No schedule, no tasks, no morning meeting, where someone was always late and I was still the first to arrive. Instead, silence, and a refrigerator that held 1 yogurt and 2 cans of non-alcoholic beer. Breakfast of a champion. Decided to go outside. Just take a walk. Maybe shake things up. Maybe make sure the world still exists. Met Ted on the corner, a former co-worker who always made below-the-belt jokes but was generally normal. He looked at me like I was a ghost. Dude, I heard, damn, that's rough. Thanks for the sympathy, Ted. It's nice to be sincere, I said, giving him the most fake smile in my arsenal. You hang in there. I guess this is a mistake, huh? You were the face of the department. Yeah, the face. Only the face was old. And the company's trending now is leadership through youth. What they call rejuvenation is really just a cleanup. You're not sold, you're just written off. Like an old printer, it still prints, but it's out of date. I walked past a coffee shop I'd been going to for 17 years. There was a line. The barista didn't recognize me, or pretended to. Maybe it's because I'm no longer wearing a badge and tie. Maybe because I'm invisible. I came home. I opened my desk drawer. There were some old reports, the presentations we used to win contracts on. I read them like a diary, all in the past. And then I found a file signed Thank You Letter 2015 from the CEO. Martin, you are the pillar of our strategy. Without you, this year would not have been a success. Where is that CEO now? Retired, and his pillar is over there with the box in the parking lot. Toward evening, I decided to call Julie. She's been my deputy for the last 4 years. Together, we'd been through layoffs, supply disruptions, and the introduction of a new platform that was then sold to customers as innovative. I dialed the number. Hi, it's Martin. Pause, too long. Hi, how are you? How do you think? Look, I didn't know they'd do that. They told me you were leaving on your own. Of your own free will. Did they? I didn't know. I really didn't. They just told me to sign a new assignment sheet. I thought you were on vacation. I hung up. Not because I was angry. It was because I felt an emptiness spreading in my chest. The kind that comes when you realize it wasn't your enemies who betrayed you. It was your own. The ones you pulled out at 3 a.m. when a client's base was down. I was up all night, staring at the ceiling. And I thought, maybe this is all for the best. And then I got angry. Not at them, at myself, for letting them. And that's when I realized I wasn't just fired. They tried to erase me, quietly, without a trace, as if 17 years could be thrown in the trash. But I'm still here, and this is the beginning. Saturday morning, it would seem that it's finally possible to sleep, to rest, to exhale. Only when you've been thrown out of work, sleep is not a comfort, but a mockery. I woke up at 6, as I always did, but now for no reason. Just lay there looking up at the ceiling, which appeared to have a crack in it. I'd never noticed it before. I tried to turn on the TV. The noise, the bright pictures, the anchors with fake smiles, it was annoying. I wanted one thing, silence. But it wasn't coming in my own head. There was an echo. No one needs you anymore. It sounded steady, confident, as if someone had recorded it on purpose and put it on repeat. I put on my coat without breakfast and went outside. It was gray, the same shade when the sky and the asphalt are equally dull, and I blended into that palette perfectly. I walked without purpose, just moving. I caught my reflection in shop windows a couple times. I never realized I had such a slouchy silhouette. I met Megan on the corner, a former co-worker from the marketing department. She was carrying bags and her face was confused. Martin? Oh my God, I heard. It's terrible. They're totally... Don't be, I interrupted. It's fine. It wasn't okay. But I didn't want sympathy. I wanted justice. And it was, as always, somewhere on the weekend. I went to an old coffee shop. The barista suggested the usual. I nodded. But the flavor was different. Like not a latte, but warm water with regret. I sat down by the window, watched people walk by, hurrying, talking, living. And I hovered, between yesterday and never. A young woman came into the cafe. I recognized her from the corporate department. She whispered into the phone, "Yeah, that old analyst got fired." Finally. I heard. She didn't notice, or didn't see fit to apologize. I didn't turn around, just slowly got up and walked away. I walked back through the park, sat down on a bench, and for the first time in years I cried. Not loudly, no hysteria, just quietly, like a grown man who doesn't know who he is anymore. And then the phone, an unknown number. I didn't answer it. A minute later, a text, an offer, a private project, unofficial, no guarantees. But someone remembered what I was capable of. I took my time answering. I just turned off the phone and went home. There was still anger burning in my chest, but there was a spark to it. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. In the meantime, I was still the guy who got fired on Friday. I got home like I was carrying a slab of concrete on my back, every step into the void. Opening the door, I caught myself automatically looking for my office keycard. It's gone. Instead of the familiar peak, only the creak of my own lock. Even my hand reached for the light switch, just like in the office. 2 clicks, 1 delay. Habits die last. Kat greeted me as if nothing had happened. She didn't care about layoffs, restructuring, or any other corporate bullshit. She poked at my leg, meowed, went to sleep. There was a special lesson in that. Keep it simple. Eat, sleep, burn. But for a person who has just been thrown out of life, such lessons are hard to learn. I opened my laptop. I thought, I'll check for HR emails. Then I remembered it's off limits, no emails. But I checked anyway. Nothing. I opened LinkedIn. First thing I see is a post from Harding. He writes, "Proud of our innovation and youth team," and a photo, smiling, hugging a group of interns. Not a hint that he's crossed off 17 years of work in one click. I scrolled down below. People were liking, commenting, "Awesome! Zrania, future leader." And I was looking at this and thinking, really? This is your leader? That marketing dummy? I almost hit comment. I almost did. But I didn't. Because I'm not vindictive. I'm different. Inside, though, things were simmering. To distract myself, I started revisiting old projects. The slides we spent nights on. The presentations that saved deals. Over and over again, I saw my name at the bottom, in small print. Analyst in charge M. Wells. And next to it, the last names who now write posts about the new generation of leaders. In the afternoon, my sister called. We rarely talk, but here she had heard from someone. She asked me how I was holding up. I said I was fine. She offered to come over. I said no. Not because I was proud. I just didn't want her to see what a person who'd been written off looked like. After the conversation, I looked in the mirror. Wrinkles deeper than I remembered, stubble, the look of a man who'd lost. And that's when I decided enough was enough. I sat down and wrote a list. Everything I know how to do. Everything I've ever done. Everything I've created. It made it easier. Because paper doesn't lie. There was more there than I thought. More than they saw. More than they wanted to admit. And then the phone again. Same number. Same person. "Martin, we're serious. We want your head. Not a title. Not a report card. Not a badge. Your head. We're ready to meet tomorrow." I didn't know if I'd agree yet, but for the first time in 3 days, I felt needed. I turned off the light. I lay down on the couch. And for the first time in months, I fell asleep without nightmares. Sunday morning, I put on a clean shirt. No reason, just to remember what it felt like to be okay. Dressed like I was going to work, but I didn't go anywhere. Just walked around the apartment like an office. Checked the kettle like it was a coffee machine. Looked out the window like I was waiting for the delivery guy with the reports. That's how the morning goes for a man who's lost his role. Because work isn't just about the money, it's a sense of meaning. It's what makes you get up at 6 and not feel like an idiot. And now there was no meaning. Just the rhythms that remained in the body. The brain already knew no one wanted you, but the body still didn't believe it. I went outside again. It was overcast. People were walking to church, to the stores, some with children. I was just walking. Somewhere in the distance, a leaf blower was working. Noisy like Harding at flyovers. Too much air, too little use. On the corner, I saw a sign for a new firm, Next Core. Old premises, new brand. Used to be a print shop, now it's innovation, digital solutions, blah, blah, blah. I went in, just out of interest. There's a girl at reception, about 22 years old. "What can I do for you?" "Just browsing. I used to work here." She smiled, not recognizing the irony in my words. I felt like a museum piece that had wandered into a mall. On the way out, I saw an old sign on the wall that read, "We are proud of our roots. Only roots, as it turned out, can be easily torn out if they interfere with the new logo." Got home close to lunchtime. The cat again showed no emotion. I turned on the laptop, checked my email. There was a reply from the person I'd written to the day before. That client. He didn't just remember me, he was grateful. "Martin, if you're available, I have a situation. Unofficially, but it's urgent. You're the first person I thought to write to." I reread the message 3 times. It was short but powerful, because it wasn't a vacancy or a position, it was you. I wasn't a function, I was a person, and that was worth more than my entire last year on the job. I wrote, "Ready to meet, name a time and place," closed the laptop, inhaled, took a shower. Not to wash away the defeat this time, but to prepare, because maybe the game was just beginning. Sunday night, I picked up my notebook again, the same one where I wrote a list of everything I know how to do. On the second page, I started a new list, not of skills, but of lessons. The first item was, don't expect anyone to appreciate you for your old skills. The second, say no to people who once sold you out. Third, if they try to erase you, it means you've been noticed. I wrote 10 points. Then I ripped out the page, hung it on the fridge. Not so I wouldn't forget, but to remind myself every day why I'm making my own choices now. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. Not out of fear. It was excitement. It was as if my heart was remembering what it was like to beat not from anxiety, but from anticipation. Tomorrow, something new. Perhaps a beginning. Perhaps a risk. But it will be my choice, not someone else's orders. Monday morning greeted me at 5:48, earlier than my alarm clock. I got dressed, shaved, pulled out an old notebook, walked out of the house, and I realized I was never going back to that office again. Not even in my mind, because I'm not their mistake. I'm their loss. Monday morning started differently, not with the usual feeling that you owe someone something. It started with the thought, you don't owe anyone anything right now, and that's a goddamn advantage. I woke up before the alarm. I shaved. Put on not an office suit, but a gray sweater and dark jeans, something I feel like myself in. Walked outside, breath steamed in the air. It was quiet, like before a storm. Only I wasn't under the storm now. I was walking towards it. We met at a small co-working space on the north side of town. No glass skyscrapers, no logos on the walls. Simple building, simple people. At the table is Alexei Barton, a private consultant I used to pull out of a project asshole. Now he has his own foundation and respect. "Martin, I'm going to be blunt. We're a mess. We bought reports that turned out to be garbage, and the project's already underway. I thought of you right away, because if anyone knows how to pull out at the last minute, it's you." I nodded, picked up the folder, flipped through it. 20 minutes later, I knew where the mistake was. An hour later, we were sitting in the conference room and aligning the budget structure. 3 hours later, I proved that there was the wrong variable in the $1 million formula. "That's sabotage," Barton said, "or idiocy. Sometimes one and the same," I replied. After the meeting, he offered a contract, a permanent one, with flexible hours, no bosses, no formalities, just business. I didn't respond right away. I said I'd think about it. I disconnected Harding's call, the way you end a sentence that's been dragging on too long. No anger, no triumph. Just, that's it. The story was over, and another one began in its place. Staying in the past is like wearing shoes that are too tight. Yeah, it's familiar. Yes, you know every stitch. But with each step, they cut deeper. And I didn't want to cut myself for someone else's comfort anymore. The next day, I met Barton again. We sat down at the table, this time as partners, not as candidate and boss, but as grown men with experience, goals, and a clear understanding of who was responsible for what. "I'll tell you right away, Martin, we don't need a man to carry numbers. We need a brain, a backbone, someone who can be without slides, but with results. You want a contract? You got one. You want a cut? We'll discuss it. You want freedom? You got it." I didn't say anything, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't being bargained with. They talked to me like a human being. No HR bullshit, no, we have a family atmosphere. Just the gist of it. We shook hands, no signatures, no paperwork, because this time it was all about trust. And I knew that's what was worth more than any contract. I went home and went through my things. It's amazing how little you need when you're no longer defined by office ID. I threw out an old tie, the one I wore to a presentation in front of the board of directors. I put a notebook in a box with notes that would no longer be useful. And then, unable to resist, I pulled out a photo, the one from the Employee of the Year award. I looked at the photo in my own eyes and realized that that man didn't die on Friday. He had died long before that, when he started to be silent, to tolerate, to buckle. But now he's alive again. Someone who can say no. Someone who can choose. The kettle boiled in the kitchen. I poured myself a cup, opened my laptop, and saw 3 emails from former colleagues. 2 of them apologized. One with an offer to meet and discuss possibilities. Now them. One of them, by the way, wrote to me 2 years ago. I can't work with you. You're too much pressure. Now, Martin, we'd like to hear your views. I didn't reply, not out of resentment, out of respect for myself. I chose who to answer to, and I chose me. The next morning, Tuesday, I walked into the same co-working space. Only now I didn't ask for a meeting. I was being waited on. The room was already filled with coffee, papers, and silence. I started working, not from scratch, from the foundation, mine. I knew it wasn't salvation. It's not starting over. It's to continue, but on my terms. And then, as if on cue, the phone rang again. Only this time, it wasn't Harding. It was a client. One of the people I'd personally saved from failure in 2019. He wanted to work with me directly, no middleman, because he knew that if Martin took the job, it would be done. I grinned. It felt good to have that trust back. I looked out the window. The morning was cold, but my mind was clear. I was fired on Friday, and by Tuesday morning, someone else needed me. And you know what the most important thing was? This time, they asked, and I chose. That evening, I opened an old box of stuff from the office. The same ones I'd grabbed on Friday. A couple of business analytics books, a souvenir mug from a corporate retreat, and a file of my client testimonials. I stared at them for a long time. These things were reminders not of work, but of time, of the years I'd given not just to a cause, to people. And it was all the more painful that when the time came, those people were gone. I put everything back except for one sheet. There was a testimonial from a client dated 2018. Without Martin, we wouldn't have pulled the project. He's not just an expert, he's a person who hears and understands. I hung that sheet on my refrigerator. Let it be my service ID from now on. The next day, I was invited to an internal strategy session at the Barton Foundation. I showed up, same round table, but without the extra titles. No one called themselves Vision Director. The talk here was simple. Who can do what? Who is responsible for what? Who offers what? Martin, can you imagine what needs to be done about their mistakes? I can't just do it. I already have. And I've brought 2 options. One is to get out of it. The other is to intercept their client. Everyone was silent. Then someone slammed the table. That's work, not 40-slide presentations. I didn't smile, just nodded. This wasn't a victory. It was a rebalancing. After the meeting, Barton came out after me. You do realize they'll soon realize who they've lost, right? He asked. That's not my problem anymore, I replied. I'm not back in the game to teach anyone about life. I'm just doing my job. But if they ask again, I'll ask for a price, and then I'll refuse. He grinned, shook his hand, without words, with respect. I walked home through the park. It was fresh. There was a hooded teenager sitting on a bench eating a burger. He looked at me like I was someone important. I don't know why. Maybe because I was walking with a straight back for the first time in years. When I got home, there was another call waiting for me, this time from the board of directors. Not Harding, not his assistants, the board itself. The voice was tense. Martin, good evening. We'd like to discuss the possibility of, shall we say, returning. I didn't say anything. The situation requires experience. And we realized that we were in a hurry. You didn't rush, I interrupted. You made a choice. Now it's my turn. You won't even listen to the terms? I heard them on Friday, in the parking lot, in the cold, with the box in my hands. I turned it off, without a tremor in my voice. No regret. Because I knew one thing now. Being needed is not about being available, and being free isn't a privilege. It's a decision, and I made it. I slept well that night. No disturbing dreams, no awakenings. I didn't think about corporate politics or count KPIs or run what could I have done differently through my head. Because things were different now. I didn't just get my profession back, I got my voice back. And when the phone rang in the morning, I already knew how to answer it. I knew who I was.